Good evening. Well, we have our challenge for today. We're going to play cash game. So let's do that. Alrighty, get to start off early. Going early with this and looking for this week. This week, working on development, and our opponent, one of my students, will do a good job of watching out for free candy while developing as fast as possible and being aware of king safety. So we want to be definitely aware of king safety. That's the third part that we're working on today. So again, as I've done in play openings, I'm going to play just basic, standard development, clear, obvious, nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary. We're just going to develop as simple as we can because we want to see if Cash will follow what we want him to do, which is develop him. Thanks for helping the stream tonight. So he's still developing his pieces. That's a good thing, right? Not crazy blocks the bishop, but it does give him the opportunity to push this pawn maybe because now he has two pieces, but I'll have two. So it's kind of, it'll be going back and forth. I would prefer that he definitely blocked the bishop first before he blocked it in with the knight. But this is a good tactic sometimes, especially if you're planning on pushing this pawn. So again, I want to rush with development. I'm anticipating the bishop coming out and pinning my knight. Beginners, because they're worried about this pin, will play this pawn move to keep the bishop from coming out. So you can do it. The risk is he comes out and then he's going to bring another piece and attack my knight with two pieces, and I may not have the pieces to block him, to stop him. But we get blocking in his bishop, not fully developing. Well, he's developing, but the knight didn't go to the best square. That'd be more accurate. So I just want to double check to make sure I don't have any quick tactics because I could sacrifice here and then my knight gets to come here. The knight would check. And in fact, castle here, I can take here, and by taking here, if the king takes back, when I get this check, the queen can't take, and the knight won't be protecting the bishop. So I can come here with check and then pick up the bishop. And that would be a free pawn, plus my opponent wouldn't be able to castle for the rest of the game. Castle would be a bad choice for king safety. So we'll see what happens. Basically, so far, the only thing that Cash did wrong is in his bishop. And so it's kind of like making it when this pawn. He's got to figure out how to get his bishop developed. He could bring his knight here, but it's just not the best square for the knight. This was. And so I don't know if we here, I've done a lesson with my students all the time. I think we mentioned it, the best square for the knights. So the best square for the knight is next best square is here, and this is the least best square on the first move. All right. So Cash does not pin the knight, which is good for him because of that issue that we just noticed. But he developed the bishop one square. So the problem here is that the queen has no place to go except for this way. The queen can't get out yet. This bishop can't get out. And this knight isn't on the best square. It's on the second best square. But it's going to take him extra long to castle because he has to get the queen off the back, which he can't. Get the bishop off the back rank so he could castle kingside. So he's stuck in the middle right now. Not a good thing. So now I'm tempted to bring my. I'm not fully developed yet. I'm not fully developed yet, but I do have king safety, and I do have three pieces developed, and he has three pieces developed. I count castling, so I'm 4-3. So I'm ahead. I could bring my knight in here and attack this pawn. And let's just see if he has a way to stop me from taking that. I don't see a way. He can't get a second piece on this pawn because of the way he developed. So because he can't, he's going to either have to put the bishop here to protect it, in which case he still loses the bishop. Right? I get to take here, and more nasty things may happen, but I at least I'm up a pawn, if nothing else. I should win a pawn. And this pawn is gone. So I'm going to go ahead and break the rule of develop, 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 but only because I'm ahead. His king poorly defended. He has no king safety because his king isn't castled, isn't going to be castled for a while. So this pawn is very weak. So because of that situation, I'm going to try to take advantage of it, see if I can attack early. So this is not what I want my beginners normally to do, except if they notice that the king is not in a great situation, and the development is stymied. So this development is going to take a long time, and you can't castle for a long time. You can't castle this way for a while. So it gives me the opportunity, and we do try to take advantage of opportunities when they're offered. So that's an exception. So it's okay to go for this opportunity. We'll see. He could break this attack, and then I have to make choices. Bring the queen, up the queen, and get a second attacker behind trade. Or he could do this. He can give it away because it looks like, hey, I get to do a counterattack. I'm threatening your knight, so you've got to do something about the knight. I'm okay. When something's attacked, you can queen. You can take it. He can run away. Pawn can run away, but the square is still going to cost him material. Checkmate if you with the knight. Did something like push the pawn or push this pawn. It would have been checkmate if I took with the bishop. So he's down to, okay, so what else can I do? I can attack something else. And in this case, he's also blocking one of the attackers. So this knight's a goner. That's confident that knight's a goner at the moment. I can protect my knight by pushing my pawn and allowing my bishop to develop. Might be a good thing to do. He the knight, but then he still gets this check in between move, and he's still not looking good. So I kind of like that. I kind of like just push the pawn, give me a chance to develop my bishop and get back to what I was supposed to be doing, which is developing. I can look at really aggressive things like bring the queen out to attack the pawn, and then he chases me away, and his queen is still threatening my knight, and I don't have a good place to put my queen after that. I could just take here, threatening the queen, and then he could take here, threatening my queen, and so we'd be in this mine would still be protected by my bishop, and I could just take back hit, and I would be in good space. So that's another option. I could just take here, and then I can win the knight. So I'm liking that. Two choices. This is also again a little bit more advanced, but normally what you would do is look for candidate moves. Can I find three good moves? And I usually you can find three, maybe sometimes only two, maybe sometimes you're clearly down to one good move. But right now, can I find three good moves? So I like taking the pawn. I like pushing this pawn and protecting the knight and keeping that pressure on. I don't really see a third move that I like. This doesn't really work because it's too easy for him to push me away, and it would help him develop the bishop. So everything else helps my opponent. So we don't want to help my opponent. So we're going to do this choice again. I think if we played more than one game, I'd say if we got into this exact same position, next time I would try this and see if that gives me a better result, better attack, right? So you have different have your stuff. Make this move every time I play this game if this came up. Now, I don't expect this situation to come. I've never seen this situation. This is a position I've never gotten into yet playing chess. So doesn't mean you couldn't. It's an odd position, mostly because Cash developed his here, blocked in his bishop, and then developed his bishop here, blocking in his queen. So everything kind of got blocked in. And so this was the scenario we talked about. So I could take queen, he could take my queen, we could trade, and I'd still be up a pawn. But I kind of like the idea of taking first because still I'm going to win a rook for my knight at a minimum. And I'm holding it, so I know I get it. So there's no reason for me to trade queens and then have a trade when I can be up the exchange. Now the only question do I take with which pawn do I take with? General rule of thumb is take towards the center. So I could take towards the center and then later on have nice chance to break open the center, or I can take away from the center, and what that would allow me to do by taking from the center is free to move and have other threats. So I got to decide. Do I see a checkmate if I take this way? He can't take the bishop. He can't take the knight anyway. His queen has out. His queen can go here, 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 or not here. If I take with the center pawn, he's going to take with the center pawn, which is again not the norm because it frees my bishop. And I think it's good enough reason all by itself just to free the bishop. So we're going to make an exception because it frees the bishop, and it's all about development. It's all about developing as fast as we can. Let's see. I don't see anyone in chat yet, and that's fine. If you want to chat questions or thoughts, I'm playing the game. He made it rated though, so I might have to play faster because now I'm down to 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Talking definitely takes time, so speeding up a little bit. I may not explain. I might have to wait till after the game to explain things because I'm going to run out of time. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. So it's interesting because I'm just noticing wherever he puts his queen, I can develop my bishop and chase the queen. So I can develop my bishop now and chase the queen, but the negative, because the knight will hold it, but then he can go to one of these square, not that square. He can go to this square, and that's the only square he can go to. And if he goes to this square, attack again by taking here, then he gets to take my bishop. So we don't like him taking my bishop. So we're going to take here first, because then we could just bring the knight back safely. I didn't like the idea that he gets to take my. I don't want to give him the bishop after. But it was interesting that the knight held the bishop, and that the queen only had one square to go to. So bring the knight right this rook. So he's going to feel compelled to move the rook, I would anticipate. And then we'll see what else can save the knight. So he saves his rook from the knight. I can go here again with the bishop, and again he would have this square, and I don't have a good follow-up, right? I don't have a way to punish or make it better for myself. So I'm going to bring my knight back out because it's protected by the bishop. I'm going to try to preserve my knight because now I got rook, where before I was only looking at getting the exchange. So I'm up, but he's now much closer to being fully developed than I am. He only has to get this bishop fully developed, and he has this pawn protected. But if I move the knight back, it won't be. And he also moves his queen out of not harm's way, but he moves his queen. Okay, so I got to speed up a little bit. I got to worry about this pawn a little bit, but I don't see any threats against my knight except for maybe pushing a pawn. And I'm thinking I could bring the bishop here. Even if he were to take, it would open up the game. I don't know if I want to open up the game anyway. So this bishop is doing, actually, this bishop attack his. I don't see how it's afterward. So we want to protect this pawn. I think we'll go here, move the knight out of the way, and we'll proceed. Maybe. Depends on what he does. He could try attacking the knight and then hopefully getting an attack on my queen with his bishop here, which I couldn't take because I back and I didn't. That might be an interesting ploy, an attempt on his part. So I'd have to decide what to do at that time. Right now, I'm trying to make sure everything is surviving the way it should without any problems. And I'm toying with the idea, okay, so he attacks the knight. I'm toying with pushing this pawn, protecting them. I know it's weird, but I want to open up my F file for my rook, and I'm running out of time. So I'll talk less, move faster, hopefully. I'm anticipating he's going to push the pawn to threaten the knight, and then he can try to bring his bishop over here and start operations. But I think if he pushes pawn here, I'm going to push my pawn here, attack the queen, and blocking the bishop off from the diagonal. And he can't take the knight because attack, and if he takes the first, I'm okay with 2 pieces for the queen. So that's where we stand, waiting to see. He just takes the pawn, which is fine. I don't think that's a bad move at all. I'm going to take back with the bishop to get the bishop off the back rank and finish my development. And now he could still push that pawn and try to cause me issues. I definitely can't go back here because then it would just be a free piece. You absolutely can. It's totally that I'm just dropping a piece. Hate it when I just drop pieces. So I just gave away a free piece. I talked about Andy about not free can drop can. I just dropped my knight, forgetting that the pawn was protecting the knight. That he has to. Duh! Wow. Okay, and I'll chalk it up to being under time pressure. He didn't give me an increment either. It's unfair. But now I'm gonna have to play without the increment and see if I can keep up. We're going to try to get a queen trade so we can simplify because we're winning, but not as much anymore. Now I'm only up the exchange since I gave back the piece, and it is 10-0. So excuse me if I don't talk much anymore because I'm going to have to check. All right, I'm going to not think out loud because it's too much effort. I'm going to face he decides to push the pawn. Nope, he pushes that pawn. Better pawn to push. Remove that one in case he takes. Got a pre-move to keep up with the speed of the game. I'm going to go after these pawns next. Pawns. I'm here with his bishop to attack my. Nope. So we're going to force a trade of rooks. Hopefully I'll have the only rook afterwards. Okay, we still get a trade of rooks, and the bishop will be pinned. Now he's got to come over and protect the bishop. I'm going to go after this pawn first, I think. Probably not the best. I can go after this pawn. Now that both pawns push coming out, I'm going to go all the way to the other side. Time. Get into the action. Got to move. We'll pre-move this one. That'll hurt anything. I don't see anything that he can attack that would be a bad thing. Okay, we're going to take. So now this pawn is in danger. Danger. Can't pre-move because it does if he pushes a pawn or something. Okay, we're going to go for that. Protect the pawn. Big time crunch problems here. Ten seconds and no time increment. Go there. Again. Got me. Now we get this pawn over here. I'm pushing this one. That one. Right there. Here. Here. This way. Be a draw. White timed out to draw. So I'll have to ask the manager to give me timing so I can talk a little bit. Even 5 seconds would be nice. Hey, Murph, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to chat. Drew with one of my students, and he gained a lot of points, and I lost a few. Talking while playing cards. But I always tell them they should play games anyway, and I like them to play rated games on Lichess because it gives them an insight to what's going on and how well they're doing. So there you have it. My student enjoyed it. I had to tell ones he gets low on time. I don't know how those international masters play 1 minute games and commentate on their games while they're playing 1 minute. I can't do it with 10 minutes, but we'll try. So I need another challenge, and I'll see if anyone's interested in challenging me. Put this in changing display mode, so you don't have to see me hunt around. Oh, I do have another one, but I'm okay. We'll do another 2 minute increment since my opponent's nice enough and I'm going to have to play faster and maybe explain less because of, you can see, I can get into time trouble. Right. So we're developing rules of thumb and trying to develop as fast as possible and king safety under control. So we're just going to keep developing, not even worrying about specifics. Just see if we can get development done. All right, good. A pin. Don't blame her. In the knight, why not? Trades the knight early, and now if she comes here with the knight, I can actually go there. So that was a good move on her part, not going there. Now if she goes here, I don't have the checkmate, so I would have to come back. But I get a pin now on the knight. Gotta love pins. Pins are great. So, yep, that's better. Attacks the queen, because if she had pushed here first, she would just lose the knight, and that wouldn't be as good. So now she's threatening here, and I have to decide between queen handy with this attack, which I can't really find a great square. So I'm actually going to come all the way back to say, yep, you did well, got me. I'm not going to mess with drop on free, give away free candy. I did that last game. Gave away free candy. All right, so the problem here is that we have two pieces now attacking the pin knight. Just like she could have been threatening, but I pushed my pawn and chased her away early. Remember, I pushed the pawn after castling, by the way. Looked at king safety first and then did the rest. Go ahead, and then I feel okay with moving away from that spot, opening up the king side. Meaning this pawn move opens up the king a little bit, but it's okay because, and now I'm fully developed. So we have a little bit of a chase going on here. Hey, you can put the question to the bishop, but this bishop isn't the one doing the pinning. So I'm okay with just moving it back. And if my opponent takes, this time I'm going to take towards the center. I'll pre-move that because then I have a nice open file for the rook. All right, so attacks the knight, but that's not a problem. I don't mind taking with the knight. I have to take with something. And here I'm going to attack the rook. So now I'm offering for an exchange, and I get to follow it up with a check. And this is a good pattern for beginners and everyone to learn because now that's checkmate. So before I do it, so that we could just go over it again. So what happened was the knight was pinned. She really needed to try to put the question to the bishop and get him out of here sooner. But without that, the problem is now the knight takes, and this kind of entices me. I try to tell my students, don't encourage people to make good moves. And this move actually encourages me to take with the knight, where I might take with the bishop first, but then if they take back with the pawn, my knight's got to go away. So why not take with the knight first? It's the right choice anyway. So when you take with the knight, they're in check. Just move the king, not take back, but that's just a free at that point. More trouble can happen. So instead, you take, but now you're going to lose the exchange. And you have to pretty much give away the exchange, because if you don't give away the exchange and you try to save the bishop both of those squares, and then on the next move comes up and hits both of these squares, right? Takes away all of these squares. So now she only has one square to go to, and then we have checkmate here. All right, so that's how that works out. But mostly it's because we were able to crack open the king's safety, right? The knight was taken away. and then the pawn had to take back, and the king became exposed. Okay, should hopefully make sense to everybody. Simple game, straightforward, just a lot of development. But my opponent, my student, needed to develop. So far, so good. So far, so good. And now, right now, she had the opportunity to say, I'm going to put this question to this bishop, because if the bishop takes, queen could take back, the queen could take, you'd have double pawns, but it's taken towards the center. The pawn can come forward and exchange. But instead, she went with the counterattack, which is fine, because now my queen has to respond to this pawn free candy. And now she still has the opportunity to say, get out of here, bishop. And she didn't. So this is the one bad move. If you think about it, it's a non-developing move. It doesn't really do anything to help her develop. This queen needs to get developed. The only place she could go without doubling up the pawns and opening up the king. But this knight move is not doing anything anymore. It's sitting here. She could have dropped it back here to attack the bishop. And if I traded, yes, it's double pawns, but the rook would have an open file. So that might be a play, right? Put the knight here would be a better play. Could have pushed this pawn to put the question of the bishop, would have been a better play. But this pawn does absolutely nothing to change her situation to the better. And so now that I'm almost fully developed, I had the queen out and I had to bring it back. So I'm almost fully developed. I can launch an attack. Now, black is almost fully developed also. So black could launch an attack also. Either one of us really has, it's a good time. It's okay. The queen isn't out yet, but you could launch an attack. And I just got lucky because I have a pinned knight. I have a really nice target for me to start an attack. All right. Hopefully we'll get another challenge. And this pattern right here should be a common one for my students to know and learn. And the exchange is the least of the problems because we're going to be threatening checkmate. And really, it's hard to, because white wouldn't take the exchange, white would look to do this. So depending on what black would do, but black has opportunities like bringing the knight in to take those squares away. Ah, Murph. All right, we have another challenge, and Murph was kind enough to give me the 5 second increment, probably because he's on the stream and he heard me ask about the. I need the 5 second increment so I can keep talking through the games. Thank you, Murph. And he made it casual even, so there's all the pressure off. I don't even have to worry. Very kind, Murph. Very kind. So again, pawns, just basic development. I try to tell my students, don't worry about learning the Sicilian, the French, and everything else. Just meet e4 with e5, meet d4 with d5. That's the most common things you'll see, you'll find. So just make those safe moves. Now, usually in the Roy Lopez, I would play this when I've played the Roy Lopez before. The bishop could go back. I could chase it again. Could go here. I can then put. All right. So I could do all that, but for the sake of playing per the principles only, not worrying about that I know an opening or not, I'm going to just try to develop as fast as possible and ignore the fact that white is threatening to take my one defender. And when I take back, that pawn would be technically undefended. So again, I can push here. I can, the idea was that if white were to have taken, pawn would take back, again, away from the center. If knight takes, then queen gets to come here, threatening checkmate and threatening the knight and threatening the pawn. So right now, if white takes and I take back and takes here, I could still come here and threaten the pawn and the knight. Not really feeling too good because that knight, you protect the knight, I take the pawn, the rook comes over, and then you have a discovered check on my king. I don't like any of that. So I need to find another way to make this work. So I'm going to do the move that Cash did, and I'm going to develop my knight to the second best place because it protects the knight. And if my opponent takes the knight, I can just take back with the knight. And the difference between this is you notice the bishop is already out. Okay. So I don't mind going to here if the bishop's already out. And I enjoy playing f pawns forward and freeing the rook and getting an attack. So I like playing aggressive. So I have that opportunity coming up because I can castle and then hopefully get this pawn push in. Now, what should Lemurf do? Well, Lemurf has a trick that I've taught him, but I don't know if he'll remember it. It's the center pawn trade, where he takes the pawn, I take back, and then he gets to fork. He gets to fork the knight and the bishop. So he might remember that and go for that, and that would be interesting and good. I think that'd be a fun game for him to play. I'd probably keep the bishop by dropping it back. He would take my knight, and he'd have pawns, but he'd be up a pawn. Get a free pawn out of it. So the other way to do it is to bring the bishop back here to protect the knight. He takes, and then I get to take. I get to take back with the bishop, so he doesn't get the free piece, the free pawn. And so he did it. Good. He remembered. I'm glad he remembered. I don't really see anything better for me. So we discussed it already, right? I don't see anything better. I could chase this bishop around a little bit, but not crazy about that idea either. So I could go here. He takes, I take back, and then he might even do something like that. Again, would be interesting for him. I got to decide if I want to give him double pawns and not take back the pawn, or do I want the pawn more than I want my bishop hanging there. I could make him decide which one to take and not move either piece, and I could attack his piece. So that's always a fun option too, just to see what happens. Let's attack his piece. Let's see what he does. I'm curious to see how he plays. If he takes one of these, that's a mistake because he'd be giving back the piece. It would be just a trade. Right now, he's down a piece. He needs to take one without losing tempo. So the bishop should run away. And after the bishop runs away, then I think I could protect here. He takes, I get to take back. And then if he pushes here, now I've cleared a path for that bishop to come and hide and can come to any one of these two squares. So let's see what he does. Makes it a little, just give him maybe a tougher question. So it's not a developing move, right? This does not develop anything, but it does a counterattack. Okay, so he just moves his bishop away. I could bring my queen out and attack the bishop. It's not protected, but that's pretty easy to protect. He has multiple ways to protect it. Now, if I had a way to attack this bishop and this pawn at the same time, so that I could then take the pawn and not lose that pawn advantage, that would be nice. But I don't see that. So I'm instead inclined to move here. Now, my only worry about moving my bishop here is that he might be really aggressive and come over here and attack my knight. And then by attacking my knight, he's saying, yeah, if you move your knight, you lose your bishop. It doesn't work though. Go here with the knight and protect the bishop at the same time. And my bishop would be attacking his. I might be squeaking out of this. So let's go here. Anticipating that he'll take now. Then we'll take back. So let's pre-move that take back. And then we have a place for the bishop to come and hide. And then we got to get this pawn or this pawn. We got to get somebody out of the way so I can develop this bishop because that's my problem bishop. All right, so he does take as we anticipated. I must have lost my pre-move, but that's okay. No problem there. By the way, now if he also comes here, I could throw in a check first, which don't know that it buys me anything. Oh, yeah, it does. That check there would buy me this pawn. That's a nice double attack. So if he comes here to attack the bishop, I can come here with check. He has to respond. Bishop doesn't work. The rook would work, but that'd probably be dangerous because the bishop here and win the rook for the bishop. So chances are he'll just move over, and after he moves over, then the bishop can take here, winning this pawn. Bishop could take back, queen would take back, and we would have traded. I would have gained a pawn out of all that. That's a lot of work for that one pawn. And I would be not developing as much as I want to, but I think it's a playable choice. So again, waiting to see what my opponent does. And this time I'm a little better on time at least. I will tell him thanks for the increment. All right, so good or bad? Let's see. So it develops the piece, that's good. It attacks the knight, it's pseudo pinned. I could just castle. I always could throw in this pawn move. And again, if he pushes here, blocking the bishop, even though it'll be attacking my knight for free, I could say check first, and then he would have to move over, and then I could take this pawn threatening to win a rook. And yes, he could win my knight, but I don't even like him winning my knight. Don't Not crazy about this move per se. It works. It chases the bishop. The bishop has to make a decision. But the problem with this move, right, is ruining my king's safety. We don't want to ruin king's safety, especially when this bishop can drop back and keep me from castling. But the one thing I did notice is that this pawn is hanging and that rook is hanging behind it. And the only threat that I'm even contemplating partially is the queen coming here, threatening this twice. But because my king hasn't moved yet, I'm protecting it twice. And I can always throw in this still. So I think we're just going to take the free candy. Gotta take free candy when it's offered, especially when we don't see a reason not to, right? Take the free candy when it's offered, especially when you don't see a reason not to. General rule and a good rule. That's our rule, right? For beginners. For beginners. Always look for free candy, and take it when it's offered unless you can find a reason not to. Don't offer free candy. Never offer free. Giving away any free. All right, so the knight moves now. Murph had choices, but I don't know which ones would work for him. I kind of like the queen here, but it didn't do anything because, again, that's 2 to 2, so that really didn't do anything. So I get the rook now. And then after I take the rook, the queen takes back. The queen has that nice long diagonal trying to kill my king. So I'm going to have to be careful of that when that happens. But we got to take the free candy. I'm sorry. We got to take free candy. Right now, this bishop is not over here yet. So we will have opportunities, hopefully, to get out of this mess. But I can't let this free candy fall. Okay? At least I don't want to let that free candy fall. Just trying to make sure that he doesn't have a way to win that free candy, and I don't see a way for him to do it. But I think I'm good with castling. So now my king is finally in king safety, as was my opponent's. He was ahead of me, and he is basically fully developed. The queen has a nice long diagonal to play on, but I'm hoping for the fact that while his queen has a nice long diagonal, he's going to have a hard time making it useful. That's my goal, is to keep being useful. Now he's got attacks. I mean, the knight can come in here. I like the queen coming in here, attacking both the. But if the queen comes here, I get that check. That's a fork. But don't know if that's safe. He can then throw in this check, and then I got to decide what to do. I might push this pawn and block with a pawn. I kind of like that. That way the queen is holding it, and the knight's actually holding it at that time. So I think the queen here, I think I can get away with pushing this pawn. Can't really sack because the rook would take back. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. If the queen comes here, which was the first thought. And so if you notice what I'm doing right now, besides rattling on, part of what I'm doing right now is trying to guess my opponent's move and prepare for it. So that's one good thing to do. The other thing you could do is look for attacks, right? Look for what can I do? And so I look for, can I play chase the king? No, his king is in good king safety. This knight can come over here and make it very solid. So king safety, he's looking good. I can't get to him. So what else can I do? I can play chase the queen. I don't have a black bishop. I can't play chase the queen. So what else can I do? And now he's given me an opportunity. This square is weak for me, and it could be a problem. This square is weak for me. Not weak, but this one is the one that I'm worried about if I worry about a square, right? Because that knight sitting here means this bishop is stuck for a while and it's annoying. It's going to hit there. But guess what? The knight hitting here would be nice if the bishop were here and also hitting there, right? And then maybe you could get the queen in the game, but he's missing the fact that there's a fork here. And I don't see a way for him to keep from losing a piece because this knight move does not threaten the queen and it isn't a check. It threatens nothing except that it's a nice square for that knight. It's deep in my territory. It's annoying, but it's not attacking anything. Nothing of that isn't protected or equal value. And what happens a lot of times I find in beginners, and Murph is kind of guilty of this himself, is that he'll see this knight here and he'll worry more about that knight than taking, in this case, winning a piece. So if Murph were black, he might not. I'm hoping he will because he's been learning. He might not push and go for this fork because he might say it, look at it and say, oh yeah, but that knight's going to be really annoying. Oh, I don't like that knight. I don't like that knight. But remember, this is free candy, free piece. We take the free candy and live with the annoyance for a while. So we'll see what he does in response. So we already got the rook for the bishop, so that gives us the exchange. And now we're trying to see if we can get more out of it. I think we're actually three. I'm up one pawn in the exchange. Okay. And I've always got to pay attention to that. That's just could be an extremely annoying situation at some point. So I got to be aware and worry about that. So we're going to have probably 10 minutes left after this. So if anyone else wants to challenge, that'd be great. Don't you know? I don't think my other two students were actually on streaming, but maybe they can watch it. So a nice thing that it shows now is that that shows that I'm streaming on Lichess because I've arranged it. You have to do some certain things like add Lichess to your title, but it'll show when you're streaming. So I'm kind of excited that that's working. So don't have to waste any time on that one. We already talked about it, so we'll keep moving on. We already talked about, don't have to discuss it. This is a weakness, but I already have two pieces protecting it. So even if the queen or the rook, something else could attack it, we're good. We have two. This square is covered by the bishop. The bishop is covered multiple times. I don't think I'd want to take with the knight because I'd lose my queen to this. And I don't want to take with the queen because I'd lose the knight. So you could win back a piece by taking here, except that I have the rook. So if this rook were not here, then knight takes bishop would be a good move because you'd win something, right? Just good things to visualize, especially for my beginners. That rook wasn't there. I could take here. The queen takes, I win the knight, and if the queen and if the knight takes, then I win the queen. So that'd be good to know, right? Okay, but Murph's now low on time, and I don't think I can give him time. Let's see. So, okay, queen. Not attacking anything that I'm worried about at the moment, so I want to get out of this situation. I'm tired of this pin. I want my knight to get out onto the board. I can't protect the knight because of the pin. Because of the knight. I could just trade the knight for the rook because I'm up a piece now. So that would be giving back the exchange, but I'd be up a piece. So that's one option. I could push the pawn this way and say, go away. And that might be useful. I could push on his bishop this way, but then I'd have to push twice to get the bishop out of town. While if I push this way, yes, he still can go back, but then the pin is gone. Then all I have to worry about is the queen is the only white piece left for checks. And if the queen can get to one of these two squares, that could be annoying, but I think we can, I'm feeling confident that we can keep the queen out of those two squares. So I'm tempted to push this pawn, weakening my king's protected structure, especially when I still have two pieces to develop, but it seems like a simple move. Now, the other thing I could do is to put the bishop out here first, taking away another square, taking away that square, and this square's already taken away by the pawn. So if I do that first, if I come here first, I don't even have to worry later about this queen getting into a position that would annoy me. It'd be attacking the rook would move, most likely, and then after the rook moves, I can then throw this move in, and I should be able to then develop my knight to here, which is looking at those squares and probably attacking the bishop. All right, so with all that thought went into it, thank you again for the increment, so I can actually think out loud. I'm hoping that's helpful, and we'll see what transpires. Hopefully, I'm not missing something drastic. Knight taking here is a sacrifice, but the rook could just take back, and everything holds. I don't think that's a good move. I get to chase now. Tell the bishop to go away. If the bishop takes, I'm going to take with the rook to try to keep these two pawns in front of my king. And if the bishop moves away like I anticipate him doing, I can come here and attack the knight, or I can come here and look at this nice square and maybe attack the bishop. If I was really worried about this knight that I told you, my Murph would be very upset and want to get rid of that knight very badly. And I'm going to show you that I really don't care about that knight too much. That knight can stay there, as far as I'm concerned, for a while. As long as it's not hitting any squares that I need to worry about, I don't care about the knight staying there. No reason to just trade it off. All right, so Murph just gives away free candy. You guys see this, right? This is just free candy. The bishop can't go backwards. So he missed something there. He was, I think he was being aggressive, but when you have a piece under attack, we said, what do you do when you have a piece under attack? Take the piece that's attacking you. That doesn't work. You just lose the exchange. Right? Bad exchange rate. You run away. Oops, you run away, or you attack something of greater value. Well, he did. He attacked the queen, which is of greater value than the knight was, but the problem was it was free candy. And I've said it before, and I'll remind you again, that is the riskiest choice of all the choices. The riskiest is to take something of take something of greater value. All right, so I'm just gonna, again, just start expanding in the center. I'm up pieces and Murph is low on time, but luckily he has a 5-second increment. So if he takes, I get to take back with the knight, centralizing my knight. I don't really have to worry about this because I can just move the knight. I'm not worried about a queen trade. I'm ahead of material. He does not have a white bishop to harass me. He only has the black bishop. So I'm also attacking the bishop. So he can't actually put this move in because he would just lose more candy. All right, so it's kind of nice. It gives me a tempo because it attacks free candy, and it makes an attack on what now is free candy. That's a good thing. Tempo is extremely important in chess. It's all about speed and getting. And in fact, here the reason why we're doing this is because we're ahead in material. So we're going to offer a trade of rooks and see with his low time if he wants to take the rook. Sometimes it's really not fair, but because he has so far to come, I got to go so far. It's not right. So now I'm going to try to trade off the queens. Now I have two pieces attacking the queen. So we'll see if he'll trade queens. And again, he's low on time, so I'm thinking that's okay for me. He does not trade queens. He comes after my rook, which is fine. I can throw in a check here and then win the bishop, but I don't see that as a good move to start with. But I do like coming here, threatening the queen. It's protected by the knight, by the pawn. This rook is protected by this rook. So just giving him more problems to deal with in a short amount of time, and he has to find. Okay, so yeah, it's hard to find moves when you're low on time. As you saw in my case, I drew with my 1200 student because of the same concept. All right, any questions? I might, if someone challenges me to another game before the time is up, we can play another one. But that was nice 3 games, and all of them had an opportunity, I believe, to show off the concept of development and free candy. So here it was nice. There's nothing wrong with that, but about piece developed. The idea is with this trick is to win a pawn, and like most gambits where you give away a pawn on purpose, it can benefit you because now I still have 2 pieces developed versus 1, so I'm more developed, and we do get development going, but we miss the free candy, right? So we have to be careful when we develop how we're developing, and to be aware of what happens. The idea I was showing you guys that if he had pushed here, that I could come out here with check, and then after he moves his king over, which is the only logical move, then I could take here with the bishop. And the reason it's the logical move is if he blocks with the rook, then the bishop gets to come here and threaten to win the exchange. So then I would have taken this pawn and won a pawn back. So even though the center pawn trick was available and worked, it might not have been safe, right? And so if you're not sure, you should do it and find out, right? This is how you learn, but also realize that you're behind in development. So if it was a free pawn, not needing any taking back with the center pawn trick, then I would say go for it. But it's not a free pawn. In fact, it looks like it's not free at all. It looks like you just lose a piece or a pawn. Excuse me. All righty. I don't know if I'm going to get another challenge. Would love to have one more challenge. Maybe I can. Nope, no challenges. Let's see if. And Cash is not online anymore, and neither is Lula, my other opponent for the day. I do have another student that is online. See about challenging her. See what happens. Or Murph, I can play you again if you're still around and available. You have one more. You do have to. Oh, there's Murph asking me for another 10 and 5. Excellent. Thank you, Murph. Play this one last game. Another 10 and 5, and it's good. Murph gets extra work with his coach, teacher. So I think that's a good thing for him. Again, I'm not worrying about playing actually a regular opening of any kind. I just want to develop pieces. I'm just trying to show Murph how it can work. If I just, and I'm going to do something different. I told you I'd mix it up so he's not bored of seeing the same thing. So he trades. Now, the reason I don't like the trade is he took a developed piece and traded it for a developed piece. But the negative to this is that he's falling back. He's not developing is the only negative. I really want him to focus on develop, develop, develop. And this knight now can be pinned because there's no bishop because he just traded it. This pawn, although it's a double pawn, this pawn does hit 2 squares, including the center square, keeping this knight out. So that's a nicety for me. Plus, it does, every time you get double pawns, every time there's a pawn trade or pawn take, you open a file. Anytime a pawn takes, the file that it was on becomes at least semi-open. Semi-open meaning that there's something, a pawn on the file, but it's not my, that's my semi-open file, and my opponent has no open file, semi or otherwise. All right, I definitely don't want to take and just trade pieces, right? That's what Murph did. I don't want to give away my developed piece for a developed piece. I want to keep my piece on the board. This is a little bit weakening to the king side, but he's only got 2 pieces left to develop. But I had no chance to get, as in the other scenarios, I didn't have a knight go here to attack the knight and attack twice. So Murph didn't need to chase me away yet because I'm going to have a hard time getting another piece to attack that knight. So I would have preferred he just develop his bishop and the queen instead of chasing the bishop first, right? Because that's the general concept we're talking about is develop, develop, develop. Not the general concept is not let me move pawns out from in front of my king to chase away bishops. So it's okay. It's not a bad move. It's just, again, by principle, I want him to get used to develop, always looking to develop fast as possible as the primary thing. All right, so now I've developed the bishop, not the greatest, right? It's blocked behind some pawns. By the way, because of these pawns, it says I should attack king side. Oh, good. He does a count. I like that. He develops the bishop with a little bit of kind of tempo because it makes me not want to put my rook here and leave this pawn hanging. Now, he could take my pawn. I could take his pawn. And that pawn might be better or worse. I don't know. Doesn't matter to me. I'm castling because I need to develop. Remember, we're in a race. So white can finish developing and then black can finish developing right after each other. And we will have an equal situation in the race. And it'd be nice. It'd be good to see what happens. Because then after that comes the next phase of learning. So great. Murph finishes developing, lines up the queen with the bishop, no problems here whatsoever. I'm going to also finish developing. And so now we are both fully developed. I missed an opportunity, by the way. I totally missed an opportunity. I should have taken this knight right away. He would have doubled up his pawns. I forgot it was pinned, just totally forgot because I was talking about development. But I should have just taken that knight right away. And usually it's automatic. Usually I don't even think about it. I would have taken the knight, doubled up his pawns, totally opened up his king, and made his king at risk. So, yeah, is it the best move at this point in the game? Who knows? It's just usually it's automatic for me. Any chance I can to open up the king, I would do it. And with this being weak, I would normally have done it in a heartbeat. So now if he does some innocent move like try to get his rooks onto a good file, which again, he has no semi-open file, so he doesn't know where he should put his rooks. And that's later lesson, more advanced. But if you get to this point and you're fully developed and you've given away no free candy, then you start looking for what do I want to do? His pawns say he should attack king side. My pawns kind of say the same, attack king side. All right, so here we go. We get to have some fun. I can push the pawn because where this bishop was threatening maybe to sacrifice and the queen could follow it in, that sacrifice isn't going to work because the knight's in the way. So he can't really harass me because this knight is in the way. So I'm just going to push his knight and say, go away, and let's see what he does. Because we know now if he goes back here, I'm taking it, right? We're not hesitating. That's going to happen quickly. So we'll see what happens. See what he decides to do. By the way, if you guys, anyone watching the stream, if you let me know if it's been choppy at all or if it's been clear, I'm hoping it's been clear all the way through because that's what I'm shooting for. All right. So now I can, he's leaving his knight. And this is, again, it's the fourth way that you can get out of knight is under attack. You could take the piece that's attacking. No, he can't. Okay, so I checked that first. Next thing is, can I run away? Yep, I could run away here. I really don't have any other good square to run away to. I would have to run away here, and I know he's going to double my pawns. So he might not have wanted to do that. But that should be a definite choice. Can I put something in between? Nope, you can't ever put anything in between a pawn and thing it's attacking, and you can't actually put anything in between a king and a piece it's attacking, and you cannot put anything in between a knight and the piece it's attacking. So that would be the third choice. The last choice is to attack something of greater value or do a counterattack. So he's not attacking something of greater value, he's attacking something of equal value, and it's dangerous, very dangerous. So I can take his knight. If he decides not to take, I can run my bishop away. If I take his knight and he takes my bishop, then I get to take this pawn and start problems with him there. And if he then decides to take the pawn, I can move my knight here, threatening checkmate. And he's going to have to push this pawn just to stop checkmate. So that's all on the table. Another option is to take with the knight first or take with the bishop first. He takes back. The queen take back with check, which would give us a tempo. And then we could take the knight. So if I take here first, I get to take back with check, still be attacking here. The king has to move this way. And when the king moves that way, I can then take this knight with maybe some momentum. And it just depends if I use the knight or the bishop, what gets to come in and help quickly thereafter. And I'm thinking if I end up taking here with the queen and he has to move this way, I could put the bishop here, which would, and I can't because the knight has to leave. It depends. If he goes here, he's safe. If he goes here, the bishop would have been nice. But if he goes here, then the knight would have been nice. So questions. So again, I could take first because then he should take here. And when he takes there, I get to take here. And I'm feeling good, except I don't have an immediate check, but I get all of these are out of the way. And I'm feeling good about my chances, and I haven't given away anything else. That's really, really, really tempting to take with the pawn. Again, going over it, if I take with the bishop first and he decides to take back, then I take with the knight. No, I don't. I take with the queen for a check. Give me that momentum. By the way, I can also take with the knight because that frees the bishop. But yeah, no, I'm thinking I really, really do like this. We're going to see what happens. We'll take this way and see what our opponent does. All right, so he takes that way. I could take this pawn. I can also take this pawn. But this is definitely the pawn we want. We want, again, beginners get worried when you get pieces near their king. But look at that. The king has totally no safety. So if we're looking at a game about king safety, he just lost all his king safety. Now, the bishop could take here, hoping to push this pawn. He pushes the pawn right away. We take. So good. Bishop takes. Now I get to threaten mate. Right? That's a mate threat. So again, he's going to have to push this pawn, which means that I then get to take this bishop. I also get to take that pawn. There's options here. I don't see anything wrong with threatening mate. And if he pushes this pawn, which is an option, and the queen would be free, I can then take here, threatening the queen. And the queen can't take the time to even come here. So I like it. You followed along with me. I said if he comes here threatening the knight, I'm going to take here threatening the queen. And his queen doesn't have time to take back the bishop because this will be checkmate, even with this pawn out of the way. Queen covers. All right, so that's just calculations, tactics, but the key to all of this is his king is wide open. My king has an open square, has a pawn, but that's a threat that I'm not worried about at the moment. He obviously can't take here because that's mate. So he has to push this pawn. He pushes it 1, loses to this. If he pushes it 2, I have to look at that one. If he pushes it 2, I think this bishop is probably hanging. So I could just attack the bishop, and I'm going to win this bishop. So that's probably what I will end up doing if he pushes it 2. The other option with pushing it 2 is to take here or to take here. But if I take here, I'm not getting anything for it, and he just gets to take back, and his queen is protecting everything. So I don't think that's what I want to do. The check here does nothing. His queen just comes over and protects and stops all the shenanigans. So we have to wait and see. But yeah, so it's interesting. Here is actually a worse move than here, even though this is going to lose the bishop. I think I just push, and the bishop is free candy. Okay, so he pushes it 1 as we already contemplated. So guess what? I don't have to waste time. I've done that pre-thought, right? I looked at his possibilities and I said, well, he only has a couple of choices to stop mate, 1 or 2. And so we knew that was what he had to do to stop mate. So he could have put the bishop here too, but then we take it. So since I knew he had only 2 choices, we get to play with based on those 2 choices. So now we take bishop for free, basically. He could take here, but then he'd lose his queen. He takes here, we said we checkmate. So now he still has to worry about the checkmate. So he went with this move, which we just said drops the queen. So just wrong choice there. He had to move the queen over here and trade off the queen for queen. And I would have traded queens because I would have been up a bishop. But instead he went with that. So what's wrong with this one? This one allows a pin. So we always start with a pin, right? Because now the rook can't move, so I can win it later. He could bring over the other rook to protect it. That's pretty much that was the only choice he had there. Now, because this rook is pinned, I can move my queen here or here with check, and I don't have to worry about this rook interposing because it can't move anywhere yet. So that's very tempting just to start snuffing up the pawns. So let's look at it again. Take here with check. He's got to move his king. He can move his king here or here, but then I get to take that pawn. Now he can move his rook to block, and that might be a good move for him. And so I got to think about it. I could also just take, and whatever way he takes back, I then take here, and then I take there. I can go here, check. Okay, so let's forget about the pawns. Forget about the pawns for a second. Going for bigger fish. Go here with check. We already said the rook can't go, so the king has to move away to one of these 2 squares, which means I'd have 2 pieces attacking the rook. So that wins us a rook. So we'll go for the free candy, right? Always go for the free candy. And if I looked deeper, I would have realized he only has 1 legal square, not 2. He only has this square he can. So now we could take the rook, get more candy because we like candy. Candy's good. And so he attacks the bishop, but can you guys see a mate? There's actually a checkmate on the available, 1 move. So he just missed it. He could have went here to attack the queen, and and the mate still holds, or he could go here and attack the bishop twice, and the mate's still there. So the mate is here. Move here, the queen hits all of these squares, and the bishop is taking away that square. All right, excellent. Hopefully that was instructive, and it was all about king safety. All right, stream quality has been good for me since I came in a bit ago. No lag, sound is fine. Thank you so much. And I have not tried to pronounce everyone's names yet. I know some people, but Avisceratus sounds like it's Roman, kind of like Tiberian, which is my username. All right, thank you so much. I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys got some insights out of it and saw what we were talking about, the king safety. We worked on development and king safety today. Just to play them out to see how it runs. And so in this game, both players fully developed. I believe I missed a move here of opening up that king early, but it turned out okay. This move, now that my opponent was fully developed, he wasn't sure what to do, but he knew he didn't want to double these pawns, and he probably didn't want to give me a sacrifice here either, because that still would have dropped the knight. If you see that, if he had moved here, then I could have just taken. He would have could have taken. Don't know that he would have, but he could have taken. Queen would take back, and when all the dust clears, the queen would be here, and the bishop and both pawns are gone, which means we have a check. King has to move out of the check, and when he moves out of the check, he drops the knight. So I would get back the piece, and I'd be ahead 2 pawns, and his king would be exposed. So I'd be up 2 pawns, and his king would be wide open. So he realized he can't do that because it would just give away a pawn. So he needed to do something, and he realized his problem is that the knight is in trouble. Now, where should he have gone? He could have gone here. Nice square protects here. Maybe could push that pawn then because the knight's protecting that square. This would have been a good square for the knight for the time being. Here, okay, protects this square. So if there's any shenanigans, the knight can still come in and protect. Yes, the knight should move, or the queen would have to go repin itself. So the knight should move, but here is a good square, especially after we've already weakened our king side for castle. But that also means that there's a little nook for that knight. So we'll just call that the knight nook. We want to take advantage of that little nook for our knight, put it there, and it can then hit back into this square. And from here, if I was white and I'd put my knight here, then I'd be looking for my next move maybe to attack with the push the pawn, because I have the bishop, I have the queen, I'm going to have the rook, I'm going to have the knight ready to go. I'm going to be the aggressor, right? I would be the aggressor in that situation. Put the knight here, push this pawn, strike at the center. I already have double pawns. I'm not going to want to take this way and have these 3 pawns out here by themselves. I think that would be a much better plan for white. Knight here, push this pawn all the way. And that's what I'll teach Murph later when we go over the games. All right. You're welcome, Eviskis. Nice to meet you. And I'm glad you liked the lesson. Excellent. Thank you. Mondays, as a reminder, we will introduce a concept. And our concepts so far were free candy, develop in the opening, and how to play the opening, which is all about development. That's why this lesson, and then lesson 3, this lesson is about king safety. So we might talk about center control, or we might skip center control and talk about how to think through your moves. I have to decide over the weekend what our topic and concept will be for Monday, but this is all for beginners, and it's for those who are teaching beginners. So hopefully it's giving you insights about how you can teach the game from a understanding the principles and concepts and not doing a lot of memorization of openings yet. So again, we talked about the opening, not memorizing any openings, moving only center pawns unless provoked to do so, only moving center pawns unless provoked to do so. And he felt provoked, so I'm okay with that. And then developing as fast as possible. It's a race. You want to win that race, and you want to maintain king safety. So I have a castle king with a knight hanging around, and actually I have a bishop and another bishop hanging around. That king is feeling extremely safe. Even if these pawns started coming, my king would feel extremely safe, but his king would be. All right. Next Next stream will be Monday at 8 p.m. and it'll be introducing the next concept or principle that we'll be working on. Thanks again for attending. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on Monday.